2 or 3 days because we didn't have an airplane to fly until we brought one up from Jacksonville. And I remember flying over along the coast of Greenland after the weather really got a lot better. And I remember flying along the coast of Greenland at like 10,000 feet, and normally you couldn't do that up there. The weather was so bad you couldn't see anything, and it was just beautiful days, and we could see the whole coast and never saw anything.
And did you? How long ago did you find out that there were still some bodies remaining, and that there's
I didn't find out about that until Petway started this campaign. And I was surprised that they didn't do that, because I knew that they found them, but I didn't know how many they found. So that kind of shocked me. I thought they'd get all of them, because I knew most of the guys on there. And I was kind of disappointed.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, is there any other comments you'd like to make?
I don't think so. Like I say, I gassed the airplane that night, and then worked on the airplane all morning, until 6 o'clock in the morning. I think it took all like 7:30 or something like that. And I was surprised that another crew was taken instead of us, because I expected to be sleeping on the wing beam on the way up.
Dave Amadon. I was Lieutenant JG when I joined the squadron in March of 1961. Left the squadron in November of 1964 as a lieutenant.
Okay, and did you know the lost crew from the...
I was assigned to the crew before they were lost. Crew 3 was my first crew in the squadron. And soon, just prior to the deployment overseas, I was put on Crew 2. And when we were over there, Crew 3 was in Rota with us. And then they were transferred up at the change of command time to go to Iceland in January of '62. And prior to that time, there had been a problem with the crew in Athens. They'd gone in bad weather and landed and blown tires, 1 or 2 tires. And we had taken a tire from Rota all the way across to the Med to give them a tire there. And rather coincidentally, the plane captain Hurst on Crew 3, whether he had a premonition or not, but he somehow, I heard the word that he did not expect to get back to the States.
And I've heard there was a couple people on that flight that had premonitions prior to the flight.
Really? This was the only case I know.
Wow. Were you involved in the search and rescue?
No, I was in Spain at the time, but similar to that, and I just put the note on there that I was involved in transporting some of the replacement crew members up. I didn't go to Iceland, but we dropped them off in London. There was a Lieutenant Weiland and a Lieutenant Hammett were to go and make replacement for one of the crews up there.
Okay, basically, is there anything else that you would like to add, especially about where they're saying that it was a peacetime mishap and they don't want to send a second recovery, there's no funding? What are your comments as far as that goes?
Well, my comments would be I certainly would want them to retrieve all the remains. It's kind of shocking that they didn't get them all the first time when they thought they had. Now, I'd like to know a little bit more about the circumstances. In other words, I assume the weather conditions, both at the time of the crash and the time of the recovery of the remains, was not very good conditions either way. But the fact that they left them up there and they were found years later. We learned of the crash when I was a student out at Monterey, California in '66. My wife was looking through a newspaper and said they found some Air Force plane according to this article. Well, as soon as they said the date, I knew pretty much what plane it was, yeah.
And most people didn't even know until the 95 or 96 or so.
No, we knew back then. And another thing is that we're very close friends with Commander Kozak's widow. We already had lunch with her this trip, and we were in correspondence with her at Christmas time for maybe 20 years. So we knew of the recovery, that she had to bury her husband there in Arlington in '66. And then we lost track of her about 20 years ago, and we just reestablished contact through this reunion right here.
Okay, is there any other comments you'd like to make?
That's all I can think of right now. There may be some more that come on later, but that's all I can think of right now.
Okay, I'll be around tomorrow at 5. And what year were you in?
All right, 59 to 63 is the years I was there. I was an ADR-2, Aviation Machinist Mate Reciprocating Second. My name's Thomas Ernst. I flew with Bill Saunders on Crew 6 and 11. We were flying LA-11 up in Keflavik. Bob Hurst and his second wife lived in a room with me and one of my crew members. We were on a week run. We used to go to Norway, Sweden, Denmark, make the rounds, come back after 5 or 6 days. The day we landed was the day we found out that they were down. We had planned on having 2 days off. The crew turned 2 that night. We went out the next morning. We flew every day we could. They were good men. You live with people, eat with them, fly with them. You get used to them. And to have some politician tell me that they're not worth recovering really burns mine. Oh, Edmund, we can send $10 million to Asia for a bag of bones. Coast Guard cutter and a helicopter doesn't cost that much. They can go up and get them anytime they want. The Greenland government says they're not responsible. I can see their point. But we are. And as a sailor, it really ticks me off to know that they were just sailors. That's wrong. I turned it over to everything I got to a radio station in Ann Arbor, WAAM, and the head man at the time said it was too controversial a subject. I'm with the Washtenaw County Council of Veterans Honor Guard. All we do is funerals for veterans. Seeing we're not within 50 miles of an active station, all they'll do is send some reserves out with a boombox. We're a bunch of retired veterans. We got together, and when I told them about this, we all tore the POW MIA patches off our uniform. Because if they're not going to do anything for these 2 guys, we're not going to sponsor anybody. All we're doing is taking care of our own. And we've been averaging over 100 funerals a year for the last 7 years. And the government can't afford to do it. A bunch of veterans can. We don't get a penny for it. I would like to see these 2 men brought home. They've got it coming. And if the government can't do it, it's about time we got someone in there that could understand where we're coming from. I'm getting pissed. Yeah, I'm getting excited. I got to cut.
Okay.
I'm done.
Thank you very much.
Well,
And what year were you in vp-5?
My name's John Good. I went into the Navy in 1957. I went into the squadron in approximately March of 1958 and was discharged September 1st, 1961. I went in as an AN and came out as an AO3 in Aviation Ordnance 3rd class.
And you knew the lost crew from the 1962 crash?
Yes, that was my crew. I flew with them.
Sorry. That's my watch.
You want me to stop?
It's a deal.
Okay. Yes, I flew with the crew. I was on, we used to be crew 11 and went to crew 3, and I met Norman Russell one day in the barracks. He just came in from radio school. I talked him into coming on the crew because we didn't have one, and so he and I become friends, and we bummed around together for until I got out. And I was in the hospital the last month or so that I was in the Navy, and I was supposed to get orders to just be discharged, and they gave me the option of going back to the squadron, so I did. I ran into Commander Kozak, and he asked me to re-up for the length of the deployment, and he said he would see that I got discharged the minute we got back, because it could be a little over 6 months by the time we left and the whole deal. And I said, okay, because he said he was going to Rhodes, Spain. I said, I like that. So I went up, was signing the papers, and Yeoman Bensfield that I knew, he was talking to me, and he said, hey, you know, after a while, Commander Kozak's taking over as XO, and you're going to Iceland. I said, stop the paperwork. I said, I don't want to go up there. So I ran into him down to the stores department. I told him. He says, I said, I can't go with you. I said, you're going to Iceland. He didn't tell me that. And he says, I can't be that bad. I said, you ever been there? And he said, no. I said, well, I have. And I don't want to go back. And so I didn't. And then I was sitting in a bar in Lake City, Florida. I heard there was a crash. And I thought, well, it's probably our squadron. But you know, I thought, well, it wouldn't be the crew. It was. And later on, after I was married and had a son, I named him after Norman Russell and Joseph Renenberg. And in about 1967, I went down through Louisiana and looked up Norman Russell's father, Royce Russell, and went out the house and introduced my son to him. And while we were talking, he said, I guess you'll want to go visit the grave. And I looked at him kind of funny, and he said, well, you knew they found him? I said, no, I didn't know that. And so I visited the grave, and then I corresponded with him over time, and then we kind of lost contact. And since then, I've been in contact with Norman's brother, and I had a wine bottle that Russ had gave me, and I sent that to his sister. So, yeah, we used to call Russ, one guy, Ron Nunn, and nicknamed him Fish Eye, so we called him Fish Eye. But he was really a nice guy. He was, and Joe Rittenberg, the other guy, he came in the Navy. He'd been in a foster home, at some other kind of home, like an orphanage. He had two sisters in an orphanage, and all he wanted to do was get out of the Navy and get those sisters out of there. And of course, he never made it. And I always felt guilty later for not looking him up, you know. But recently, I talked to his aunt. And Joe's mother, when she was 30 years old, went to the grocery store and disappeared, and they never heard from her again. She didn't say what they suspected or anything. And then Joe ended up back in Chicago with an uncle, and his uncle ended up putting him in this home. And then when he was of age, it appears he joined the Navy. And he wanted to get out and get those sisters out, and nobody could ever get a hold of the sisters. And I told his aunt, I said, boy, I just wish they knew that, he wanted to get out. He hadn't forgotten them. And that was, I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to ask?
No, that sounds really good. Anything else you can think of, just feel free to say it. And, give me your thoughts as far as sending a second recovery mission? Or
yeah, I sure hope they do that. I've been in contact with Congressman Blunt from Missouri, who's the majority whip, and wrote letters. Bob Petway has really helped by giving us information and letting us share it with other people, and that's really been nice. And I met Commander Kozak's children, some 2 or 3 years ago, before the last reunion, and met with them at Patty's house. They're really nice. I really enjoyed it. And this time I understand their mother's coming. And I met him once in '61 before the deployment. Commander Kozak was kind of a man's man. He'd have a lot of crew parties, and we had one out at, I believe it's Kingsley Lake, and his wife and children were out there. So I knew he had kids moving down. I just knew that they were going to be back. He was a tremendous guy. And Caswick, Lieutenant Caswick, I don't know if he was a JG or at the time, I'd flown with him about the whole time that we were both in the squadron. For some reason, he was always on my flight. We used to call him Elvis because he had this to start him a sideburn, which was kind of, the officers didn't really dress. But Lieutenant Caswick, he was that way. He was Ensign Caswick at that time, and he was a different sort. He was a fun guy.